This video is sponsored by Disney Collect by Topps, which brings collectible card trading into the world of Disney. And now it's easier than ever to get started with the Wish feature, where you can spin and win a few extra cards and coins every day to then begin to build your very own collection. So download the free app for iOS and Android today with the link in the description box below. Hi there, Waltoniers. I'm Jack, and this is DSNY Newscast. We're on a live stream right now. Hopefully everything's working as it should. So that was quite the weekend of news. I was very busy just going around trying to get every video out that I possibly could for that weekend. Hello, everybody. I would love to know where everybody is watching from right now. And we'll have a little bit of a chat about D23 Expo weekend and the different kinds of news that we got that weekend. I mean, you know, I'll get into it in a little bit about my thoughts of the overall D23 Expo this year. But yeah, let's have a little bit of a chat to begin with. Okay, you like my official Mouseketeer mug there? Look at that. There you go. Right. Everyone says they're coming in. How dare you interrupt me? I was watching one of your videos, Izzo says there. Well, I actually just posted a video around an hour ago about Walt Disney World and the additions that we got announced. When I say announced, I really mean, you know, updates regarding the existing projects for Walt Disney World. And yeah, I kind of pushed that video a bit further back in the schedule of videos I wanted to actually, and the topics I wanted to get to, because to be honest, it was updates about existing projects. But overall, my impressions of D23, I'd also love to know what your impressions of D23 Expo were as well this year. Good evening, Jack, from London in the UK. Well, the comments are coming in thick and fast here, guys. How much does, let me just have a look here, wait. Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, D23, what a snooze fest. Nothing big, no Tomorrowland update to Disneyland. Yeah, that was actually kind of disappointing for the Disneyland side of things. I actually feel like Disneyland got an awful lot more news than Walt Disney World, or at least their news was more consequential than Walt Disney World's. Walt Disney World really got kind of shunned this year a little bit. There's this kind of ongoing thing, which is a lot of Disneyland fans think that D23 Expo, these past couple of D23 Expos, has been very Walt Disney World centric, and this year it was very much about Disneyland and the international parks in many ways as well. Jack, do a video comparing each theme park to Epic EPL team, please? I think that's Epic Universe they're referencing there. At least we got a season for Tron. Yeah, no, so let's begin with the headline news out of the expo. So we got the Blue Sky concept art. Okay, so we got the Blue Sky concept art for Walt Disney World. And I know a lot of people are saying, you know, this is very blue sky, and the one for Magic Kingdom definitely is very blue sky indeed. That it was very vague, it wasn't very detailed, the concept art itself. It was much more like an impressionist kind of view of the new lands that they've proposed. They weren't even really proposing new lands. They were more talking about brainstorming ideas on stage and trying to get a live reaction from the crowd, and maybe on the live stream as well for D23, about how people felt about the various you know, sorry, I'm having to do two things at once here, but about how people felt about these various proposals and the ideas that are floating around within Imagineering. Now, I actually think the Moana and Zootopia idea, that concept art is a completely different level to that of Magic Kingdom. Now, that had actual detail to it, the locations of where things are. I'm going to do this in a video at some point, but when we get a bit more details about it as well. But the actual locations within that concept art actually do align with what they've got there. They've already got the vacant space within Dino-Rama and Dino-Land USA within Animal Kingdom, and Disney do know that they want something within Animal Kingdom, because still that park closes around 8 PM at night, and they need to have something more within that park, so therefore they can open it a bit later and have it run till 9, maybe 10 o'clock at night during the summer periods. So that's another thing that plays into all of this. It's the capacity argument. They do need the parks to be running at capacity. I'm actually kind of surprised, considering that we got the Dinoland replacement sort of announced. We didn't actually hear anything else on the Rivers of Light, the theatre over there, the outside theatre, because that venue in itself holds an awful lot of people, similar to Fantasmic in a way, not quite the same size, but still. And it will pull in a huge amount of guests for the nighttime activities. Now, if they brought something like a drone show or a fountain show, a bit like World of Colour, to that park, to Animal Kingdom at nighttime, I believe a lot more guests would be staying at Animal Kingdom past 6 p.m. And if you've ever been in Animal Kingdom, there's a huge drop-off around 5 to 6 p.m. The queues, the wait times drop and everything like that. So, yeah, I was expecting us to at very least get new show announcements, which we did. We got the Happily Ever After return announced, and we also got the Harmonious replacement announced as well. But I'd have also liked to see Fantasmic with an opening date announced, reopening date, or whatever you want to say. It's Fantasmic, the next version of it, 2.0, and then also Rivers of Light, a replacement for that show in Animal Kingdom. And then if you'd have done that, you'd have 4 nighttime shows announced, which would have really completed the lineup for Walt Disney World and felt like there's something really big coming within 2023. In terms of Fantasmic, I don't think we got the announcement. Well, obviously we didn't get the announcement, but the reason why I don't think we got the announcement is because it's right around the corner. It's so close right now. To be honest, the way that they were trying to fill out the Disney Parks presentation, I'm actually kind of surprised that we didn't get that announcement on stage because, for an example, I just want to make a reference point here. I was watching it live like everybody else, and I was watching the clock as the announcements were going on. And I was thinking to myself, okay, we spent half an hour. This is only meant to be a 90-minute presentation, don't forget. And we've spent half an hour so far, and we haven't really had anything big announced. And then it went by 45 minutes to an hour, and I was like getting a bit concerned. Okay, the next half an hour, they have to announce some big stuff for Walt Disney World. And as time went by, obviously we know that the 90-minute presentation, the hour-and-a-half presentation, was actually closer to 2 hours long, and they overran. But there was an awful lot of filler within the Disney Parks presentation. And number one, that is not just annoying for us because we're just sat at home, we're watching it live, but for those attending who have spent huge amounts of money not only to attend D23 Expo, but also with the hotel fees, the flights, everything else that go along with it, to then, win the idea of being able to get into that event, because obviously not everyone can go into that parks presentation. So those who are lucky enough to attend and actually be in the room, to then be greeted with just basically some entertainment, like, the singing and dancing for the Tiana's Bayou Adventure and Happily Ever After at the beginning. And it was just, and even the way that Josh D'Amaro announced things, he was very much trying to drag it all on out. I would say this to him. He is a master at, trying to make that idle chit chat, and I won't knock the microphone this time, by the way, guys. But try and make that idle chit-chat and make the announcements bigger than they actually are. He's good at it. He's very good at it. He's a master at it. I couldn't do what he did on stage, which is really pad it out. But, yeah, no, he didn't really announce much. And we all were left with this kind of sense of, disappointment, being underwhelmed. I want to get some of your feedback here as well. This isn't just me just talking, into the camera. I don't go to the parks anymore as I live in New England, so I really don't care what goes on in the parks. Yeah, I think there's a sentiment which is going on. It's kind of a bummer about Tron roller coaster. Seems like it's been built forever. It's been being built forever. I remember seeing it back in 2019. It actually began construction in 2018, but it started kind of go vertical in 2019. And, I remember spotting the very first piece of roller coaster track actually get installed for Tron in 2019. I was actually there with my friend John, Big Fat Panda, and we were over there, and we actually saw the very first piece of curved, the banked turn go into the Tron roller coaster track. Anyway, my impression is I don't need to go back to Walt Disney World for 3 to 5 years because nothing exciting is happening. Yeah, I don't know if that's completely true, that nothing exciting is happening. I would not phrase it that way. 3 to 5 years. 5 years from now, 2027, that's a long time. 3 years from now, 2025, Epic Universe. From what I've heard, they're hoping to have Moana, something replacing Dino Land USA, open around the time frame of end of 2025-ish. That's from what I've heard online as well. And 2027, 2028, maybe for the Magic Kingdom expansion. So, yeah, if you didn't go back for 3 to 5 years, yeah, you'd be going back around the time when something new opens. But I don't actually think not going back in the meantime, you know, is worth not going, basically, you know, from that standpoint. I still think there's an awful lot that Disney offers, and the new nighttime shows are going to be worth your time. Happily Ever After, you know, the new nighttime show over in Epcot, seeing World Celebration complete, riding Cosmic Rewind again. I'm wearing my Guardians of the Galaxy DSNY Newscast shirt there. But yeah, no, I feel, and then obviously we've got Tron opening as well, and a lot of people want to see that, and Tiana's Bayou Adventure. Now, I think, without going too negative, because there's an awful lot of people out there who do, you know, once you start to go down the negative route, you kind of get stuck going down that area, and it's hard to then say some positive things. So what I try to do on DSNY Newscast is provide a balanced, fair approach. And to Disney's credit, these past, I mean, if you think about it, you've had 2017, you had Pandora. 2018, you had Toy Story Land. 2019, you had Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. 2020, you had Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway. 2021, you had Remy's Ratatouille Adventure. And then, what else am I missing here, guys? And then, obviously, in 2022, we've had Star Wars Galactic Star Cruiser. We've had Cosmic Rewind open. So there's been an awful lot of investment into the parks these past few years. You know, even going back to 2017, there's been an awful lot. And 2016, we had Frozen Ever After also open. So for many years now, for 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021, and into 2022, that's an awful long time we've had something new open at Walt Disney World. And I feel that that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to definitely have something big open every single year. It's a pity to see Tron get pushed back to 2023, because clearly they don't have anything big opening in terms of, you know, new attractions opening at Walt Disney World. So they've been left a bit flat-footed there. And I personally feel that if they'd have continued during the pandemic with the construction, you definitely could have had World Celebration completed within 2020, 2021 during the pandemic, because it was all outside construction. They could have made protocols in place, therefore they could continue the construction, much like Epic Universe did begin construction again, but Universal did with Velocicoaster, and then obviously we saw Epic Universe pick up construction again as well in 2021. So and their pace of construction is ridiculous. You know, they're going really, really fast over for Epic Universe. And I feel like Disney are purposely delaying Tron until 2023. And then you got Tiana's Bayou Adventure in late 2024. And so from Disney's mindset, if they're sat in the executive office back at Burbank, they're sat there and they're deciding what opens when, then from their perspective, they've got something every single year. And the next thing that they need to open will be 2025. They'll need something for that year as well, and then 2026 and 2027. So they're trying to space things out here. We've got a super chat coming here. It says, do you think Rock and Roller Coaster is safe because of the announcements were mainly Animal Kingdom and Magic Kingdom based? Yeah, that's a good question there, Jordan. So Rock and Roller Coaster, I believe, is not safe for the long run. I believe that Rock and Roller Coaster will be on the chopping block at some point in the next couple of years. But in terms of, you know, immediate future, obviously it's safe for another year or so. But I do know that, you know, that attraction in itself, you know, it's still very popular. The ride system's incredibly popular. People still like it. It's just got a very dated kind of theme to it now. Aerosmith, you know, the video of Aerosmith in that attraction, you know, it's from like 22 years ago. So, yeah, they don't look like that anymore. Aerosmith don't. You know, time plays its cruel tricks on all of us, and the band Aerosmith don't look like that anymore. But in terms of Rock and Roller Coaster in general, I do think that back in 2018, the New York Times had an article published, and it was saying, Disney are investing. They interviewed Bob Chapek, who was the park's chairman at the time, and they interviewed him, and he made a big, bold statement. He said, we're investing $20 billion into the Disney parks over the next 5 years in new things that are opening around the world. And that includes, every single park. That's the $2 billion that was earmarked for Disneyland Paris. That's the, the Star Wars Galaxy's Edge units before then. You've got all of the different announcements for Walt Disney World, and then Shanghai and Hong Kong, the Hong Kong expansions. And Tokyo, they don't fund, but still, they've got stuff opening over there. And it was a big, bold, and then obviously Disney Cruise Line as well. I should mention that, because that's a big expenditure from that $20 billion, was the new cruise ships coming online as well, because they're very expensive to build. So, that's a big, bold statement he made. And within that article on New York Times, they also earmarked on the map of Hollywood studios of all the new stuff that were coming, like Galaxy's Edge and Galactic Star Cruiser and Mickey and Minnie's. They also had Rock and Roller Coaster highlighted. And then within the space of around 2 hours, the article was updated with a new map that didn't have that included as part of the article. Now, that could just be, a graphic designer earmarking the wrong thing. But personally, I think that kind of mistake happens when Imagineers have spoken, or the team from New York Times who toured maybe the Imagineering facility saw something and put it in the article without having it officially confirmed. So clearly Disney do have plans for Rock and Roller Coaster at some point, but it's just a matter of, when is the right time to announce it, whether it's going to be Destination D next year in Walt Disney World, or is it going to be D23 Expo in 2024. Overall, I think D23, I do want to get some more questions here. They put a lot of eggs in the baskets of the cruise line. Really surprised about adding another ship so soon. So yeah, off the Monorail's podcast says there about the so many ships. Well, the Disney Treasure is obviously the next ship that's going to be setting sail in 2024. But they've actually got one more ship after that as well, which will most likely set sail in 2026. Then that's their fleet for now. That's 7 ships of the Disney Cruise Line. Disney Cruise Line, you may think 7 ships is a lot of ships, but compared to something like Royal Caribbean, or any of the other ones, Norwegian, or any of the other big cruise liners out there, they've got dozens and dozens of ships compared to Disney. So, I don't think that's a problem from that perspective. But and Disney are obviously moving more towards trying to get the high-end experiences, and definitely cruises are high-end experiences. Just want to read some more of these comments out, because I can see them all coming in. Ben says here, I loved the Disney branded television panel the most. Yeah, I watched that one, and it was hosted by, I think it was Raven and Lily. I'm blanking on her last name, but YouTuber Lily. She also had a late night talk show at some point as well. But yeah, no, it was hosted by those two, and it was, it wasn't that consequential in terms of big announcements. I was kind of holding back on a big, live action video to do for D23 Expo, and we didn't actually get anything massive in terms of that. The Disney Plus announcements, even the Marvel and Star Wars announcements at their respective panel, their presentation, it was underwhelming. What annoys me most about this D23 Expo this year is that Bob Chapek came out at the beginning on the first night, the media night, the night before on Thursday. And he stood there and he said, we've got some really big plans to unveil. We've got some really big stuff. This is going to be the biggest D23 Expo ever. Overhyping it. Well, we didn't know it was overhyped at that point, but he was saying, we got some really big stuff. And don't do that. Just don't do it. Don't lie to us about the level of stuff that you're going to have to announce at D23 Expo and then under-deliver. Because if you overpromise and under-deliver like that, all you're going to do is you're going to make us, the fans, the audience, the Disney fans, you're going to make us, question whether we should be excited for D23 Expo in 2024. You're going to make us question whether you follow through on what you say. And I feel like it was a really bad marketing strategy, and it really, really missed the mark. And, you know, I don't know if many people saw it, but I definitely saw it on Twitter. And, you know, the members of the press, he was obviously talking to the members of the press, trying to get the members of the press all excited for D23 Expo and everything that they've got to unveil. But don't say that to them unless you have the goods to follow through, because you just leave that bad taste in people's mouth about, you know, oh, well, they didn't deliver, did they? So that's one thing I was kind of annoyed about. Bob Chapek overpromising and under-delivering at the very beginning of the event. And then I think the Disney Parks Pavilion, when we saw what they had, you know, to show in that pavilion on night one, that's when for me it started, the penny started to drop. Maybe they don't really have anything big, because obviously all the models themselves were very, you know, they were side pieces. They weren't the main event. They were complementary to something bigger. And I thought, okay, then maybe they're unveiling and showing us something, you know, as a complementary model to something bigger. And behind one of these curtains, it's going to drop later on in the weekend, and we're going to have something really big announced, like a new international park or a massive expansion model for Disneyland Forward or something like that. And they just didn't. They didn't, and it really, for me, from my perspective, I was sat there waiting to cover the news. I'm trying to work out, is that it? Is that it? You know, that's my overall sense. But in the Disney Parks presentation, what annoyed me probably the most was when I'll put this on the screen right now, is when they kind of used time on Disney on the 2-hour presentation to even talk about this, which was, you know, a new bakery or a new shop coming to downtown Disney at Disneyland Resort. And that kind of announcement, from my perspective, obviously Run Disney coming back to Disneyland is a big deal. But that kind of announcement being made on stage in front of 2,000, you know, members of the audience for D23, it just missed the mark completely. Like, when they started talking about that, that's when I realized they don't have anything. They don't have anything big to announce right now. And the thing that probably is the most annoying is that we all know they do have things in the pipeline. We know that Tomorrowland over in Disneyland, that's being looked at by Imagineering right now. They're drawing up plans right now. Supposedly Scott Trowbridge is leading up the project over in Disneyland for that revamp. We know that they're working on plans for obviously Disneyland Forward and stuff like that, and they're trying to get those approved. We know that they've got plans for, like they showed, Magic Kingdom, Animal Kingdom. And we also know that they've got, you know, their next idea for the extra land as part of Disneyland Paris as well. So they had plenty to announce. And that's not even to mention the kind of ride re-themes, the previous announcements from D23 Expo in 2019 that didn't come back. I thought for certain, you know, Spaceship Earth would be re-announced as a project, because if you've ridden that ride in the last, you know, couple of years, you'll notice that the ride system itself needs a refurbishment. And so when it goes down for a lengthy refurbishment, that's when, you know, they're going to put the new stuff in there. And then obviously you have, you know, Mary Poppins project over in the UK Pavilion, but also new stuff like Encanto. You know, Lin-Manuel Miranda's been saying that Imagineers are working on it. And Tarzan's Treehouse, that's been long rumoured as well, that there's going to be something going in there. So it just feels like there was an awful lot that was yet to be announced, that they could have announced on stage, but they just didn't. And sorry, when you're talking to camera like this, you do get a bit, you do need a drink. So, someone says here, the Porto's announcement is for us local people. Yes, I agree, yeah. Being from Orange County, Porto's is like a legendary bakery among people across Southern California. Still weird that it ended up being one of the highlights, though. Yeah, and that's a very good point there. It was aimed at the local audience. I don't have any issue with Disney making that announcement, but when is it D23 Expo, you know, on stage announcement worthy? It's not. I mean, if we're just being honest, these expos, usually the on-stage announcements are kept to big announcements or new announcements or big updates to existing projects, not announcements of a third-party company, you know, opening a place at downtown Disney. And that's nothing against that announcement. It's just, it feels more like a Disney Parks blog announcement versus a, you know, especially when you consider that D23 Expo hasn't been here for 3 years, and this is what they did. I feel like the wind has been taken out of the sails an awful lot of the Disney community with D23 Expo because of that. Personally, I know I'm working on some videos which I'm excited about. I'm very excited about. I've got a list of them right here. I've got them on the screen. And, you know, even one of the things, though, Disney 100. You know, the whole event was marketed as the kind of, you know, the launch of Disney 100, the official kickoff to Disney 100. And what did we really get in terms of Disney 100? We had, you know, a new nighttime. We got the announcement that Disneyland's going to be the focal point of Disney 100. We got the new nighttime shows over in Disneyland for Disney 100, and the announcement that a new nighttime show is coming to Epcot, you know, as part of Disney 100. But that was it, really. There were no global rollout of plans for Disney 100. This is a massive milestone for Disney. This is a milestone that very few companies get to achieve because they don't last. They don't have the longevity that Disney have. And to reach that milestone of 100 years of operation of the company, to not have something to accompany the Disney 100 and, you know, in the news media, it's kind of shocking that they didn't. I would have thought that they would have had something, you know, a big rollout. Even when Disney Plus announced in 2019, and they have the Disney Plus presentation, and they also have the Disney Plus Pavilion as well. I thought they would at least have a Disney 100 Pavilion, and they didn't even have that. And so an awful lot of things which would have made sense logically for D23 Expo just didn't occur. I know there were an awful lot of merchandise within D23 Expo, and there was new merchandise for Disney 100, which kind of looks questionable, to be honest. But yeah, no, they didn't really deliver the goods with that. Now, am I excited about the stuff that Disney have coming in terms of the Blue Sky projects? Yeah, and for me personally, from somebody who doesn't just enjoy Disney as a fan, but also has to cover this in terms of, you know, hopefully delivering insightful analysis for all of you on YouTube. Yeah, I've got an awful lot to unpack and to talk about over the next couple of months and into the next year about these Blue Sky projects, and because Disney didn't give us a bunch of details, so you know, I'll see what I can uncover and find out about these various projects and then bring it to you, not only in terms of the Blue Sky you know, brainstorm on stage for Magic Kingdom, but obviously the more detailed plans for Animal Kingdom, and then the new nighttime shows as well, because, you know, the return of Happily Ever After, the anthem, the song itself, it'll be interesting to see what they do in terms of a show. And I've heard that there's going to be something new or innovative being brought to Epcot for the new nighttime show there as well, which will debut next year. So that's interesting. But and then obviously the Disney 100 plans. From my perspective, I was hoping to come out of D23 Expo with a bunch of details, and it just felt like a little bit like we were given bits and bobs, you know, bits and bobs, Bob Chapek. We were given scraps, basically, instead of a hearty meal of news. Okay, I just want to... Hopefully Epic Universe is good. Yeah, I know a lot of people are turning their eyes towards Epic Universe right now because of that. And... yeah, they've got some good stuff over there. Realistically, nothing new coming to Walt Disney World for 3+ years. I don't believe it's true that nothing new is coming to Walt Disney World. You've got, obviously, World Celebration. I will push back on that statement. World Celebration is opening, which is just going to be a very beautified, you know, concert garden event area. And then you've obviously got Moana Journey of Water and Tiana's Bayou Adventure. The other thing that's new, which is Tron, but obviously that's a clone. If you want to debate whether it's new or not, it's obviously new to Walt Disney World. But yeah, Epic Universe is going to leave them behind unfortunately. Yeah. No, I mean, that is something which a lot of people are going to be thinking about. You've got a question here. Is Avengers Campus a new Avengers Quinjet ride? Had it been cancelled to make way for an unnamed Avengers Multiverse ride at Disney California Adventure? So from what I understand from people I've spoken to, the Avengers Quinjet ride, it was having issues. It was having issues in terms of the ride system not performing the way that the Imagineers wanted to perform reliably in terms of capacity and just downtime and stuff, and they just couldn't get it to work. So instead, when the project was paused because of the pandemic, they decided to go back to the drawing board at that point and come up with a new idea. And from what I've heard, the Avengers Ride, the Multiverse Ride, we should start probably calling it the Avengers Multiverse Ride. I suspect we're still going to be within a Quinjet, though. Okay, that's my prediction. We're not just going to be the ride vehicle itself. I predict we're still going to be within a Quinjet, because you got the Quinjet on top of Avengers Campus as the icon of Avengers Campus in many ways. It's on top of that building, which is going to be right next to where the attraction entrance will be. And I believe from the concept art, the formation could still work. We're in a Quinjet kind of vehicle with an open top. But yeah, no, from what I've heard, they actually want that kind of open around 2020, end of 2025-ish. So we should start to see, shovels in the dirt and construction begin fairly shortly on that. I mentioned this in a video earlier this week. I speculate it's going to be the same ride system as the Peter Pan Neverland ride that's being built over in Tokyo Disney Sea at the moment, because that ride is going to be... that ride's going to be a simulator-style ride. So it's going to be a mix of screen and physical set pieces within the same ride system. And that will be, 3D imagery. It'll be very immersive in terms of the blending of a physical set piece and the screen. It's going to be pretty seamless. They actually released let me see if I can find it. Give me a second. Because I put it out on Twitter. Give me a second. Can't find it right now. Let me just... I think I've muted this. Give me a second. I do actually want to show you what I'm talking about there. Okay, I'm just grabbing it from this video here. Give me a second. Okay, right, I've got a screenshot I can show you. Right, just in case you haven't seen it on Twitter, I just want to show you this. Right, so I'm just going to drag this in here. Hopefully it shows on screen. There we go. So as we can see here, we've got, so you can see where TikTok is, the crocodile. TikTok Croc is there in the background on a screen, and then you're going to have physical set pieces in front, which will blend the scene together pretty seamlessly. It does look pretty seamless in terms of that. I also think this might be a 3D attraction in terms of 3D glasses, because as you can see there, one of the people in the shot there has glasses on. Looks like 3D glasses. So it's not just going to be 3D as in CGI of the classic animation. It's also going to be 3D in terms of hopefully the attraction itself, blended with physical set pieces. So it's going to be a bit like a Nave River Journey. But instead of it being a boat ride, from what I understand, it's going to be like a flight of passage style kind of system. So that kind of rigging system. So you're going to be moving around from one thing to the other in front of screens. And it might even be, that kind of thing, and then pull back into another screen. So it might be able to move you a bit more than Flight of Passage does, but it will be screen-based, and that's what we should be expecting from the Avengers Quinjet ride. And Disney will supposedly be using the same thing. I just want to show you this on the screen. Didn't they mention having 50 new experiences for the 50th anniversary during the last D23, but failed to deliver on that? Anybody remember that? So... that wasn't actually something that Disney ever officially announced. They never officially announced 50 new things for the 50th anniversary. What they did do is, I think it was earlier than that, it was like 2017, 2018, it was mentioned that there might be 50 new things, or there'll be a campaign linked to there'll be 50 individual things for the Walt Disney World 50th anniversary. And what that was going to do is that was going to break away, Na'vi River Journey, Flight of Passage, and Pandora. They would be 3 separate things on that list. Toy Story Land would be for Slinky Dog and Toy Story Mania, and so they were really going to go around and scrape up and say, well, that opened within the last couple of years. I know it's not within 2021, the 50th anniversary, but it opened within the last 5 years, so we'll give ourselves a leeway there, and we'll say, oh, it's part of our 50th anniversary celebration. And that was going to be one of the ideas for their marketing campaign. It just never came to fruition. But they didn't never officially announced it in 2019 or anything like that. But they did heavily tease it back in around 2017, 2018. And then we obviously, the Disney news people, we kind of kept that idea going because obviously that's what we were told. But also in 2019, they did unveil, they showed us the zoom out of the resort with fireworks and stuff, and they really did build it up, and they under-delivered on the 50th anniversary, which a lot of people, clearly if Enchantment's going away now and Harmonious is going away, and they've even done surveys saying, have you noticed there's been a celebration going on at Walt Disney World? Clearly they did under-deliver on the celebration, because you don't have to ask that kind of question if you know the answer is that you've done enough. You don't have to ask the question. But if people are starting, if the attendance isn't the way it should be, and they're not noticing the merchandise sales being as high as they should be and stuff like that, then clearly they're a bit concerned that people haven't even noticed there's a celebration going on. And they haven't really kept the advertising going past a certain point as well. So, that's all part of it. Yeah, I'm surprised we didn't see a Cosmic Rewind 50th anniversary advert. Instead, it was just a Cosmic Rewind advert for by itself, rather than trying to include it in the 50th anniversary stuff, like they did for Remy's Ratatouille Adventure. I also want to keep an eye on the time. We're currently 45 minutes in. So yeah, in terms of the Avengers Ride though, so what I'm expecting is by 2025 we should see something happening in Animal Kingdom. It will definitely be under construction by then, or close to opening around 2025, around Epic Universe's opening. They'll either have it almost ready to open or within shot of it opening, basically. So bring in Dinoland. I don't think Zootopia is going to be right here and now. That, I suspect, is a retheme of Dinosaur and or Countdown to Extinction, if you like me, if you're old, which I always thought was a better name. But Dinosaur, yeah, that ride. So it's going to be a theme of that as well, but I don't think that will happen at the same time as Moana. I think Moana's like their main target right now, to put something in that location of Dinorama. And then for over in Disneyland, you're going to see after Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway opens in 2023, you have Tiana's in 2024, and then hopefully, fingers crossed, Avengers Multiverse Attraction in 2025. So it's not a particularly the thing about the Avengers Ride is that it's not like they need to build out a whole new facade. When they build attractions, a lot of times put into the surrounding area. Sorting out the theming of not only the land in front, but also the facade of the attraction. Look at Remy's Ratatouille Adventure. You couldn't just plonk that right down in the France Pavilion and just have a cut through, which they could have done, but then capacity-wise and guest flow, it wouldn't have really worked. So they built the whole courtyard. And building the whole courtyard aspect to it was just as much as building the actual attraction. But with Avengers, not only have they already got the land built, they've also got kind of like the icon and the facade built as well, with the Avengers HQ building. And so all they need to do is just do all the construction backstage. And when you're just focusing on backstage stuff and you're not having to worry about the theming in front, things can come together a little bit faster. The reason why Tiana's is going to take a bit longer is because obviously they've got to retheme the outside of Splash Mountain as well. So I suspect the Avengers one could come together pretty quickly, especially considering it's just going to be basically a big box. Not quite as big as Cosmic Rewind, but definitely, a sizable attraction building, something similar to like Soarin' or Flight of Passage, that kind of thing, at the back. And all they have to do is just put a little bit of light theming on the outside of that for sightline purposes, and put a big Avengers A symbol on it, and boom, you're done. It's the Avengers Quinjet hangar. It's pretty simple to do. So the reason why originally in 2019 we were saying 2025 for that attraction was, and yeah, that's a 6-year lead time or build time. The reason why we were saying that is because the ride system itself was an innovative new ride system. It seems like they're going with a ride system that's more tested and will be more reliable in terms of capacity and throughput and stuff like that. And so therefore it makes more sense to predict a bit of a closer opening time period for that. By the way, guys, when I put these comments on the screen, I don't get a chance to really read them that much before I put them on the screen. With them making most Fantasmic related announcements via social media, do you think Disney is going to use social media for the major announcements instead of D23s? No, I don't think they're going to go the route of using social media. I do think that they see TikTok as a big communication. Well, they did. They definitely saw the potential of TikTok and stuff in 2020 and 2021. I don't know if they're getting the same social media return that they got in 2020 and 2021 from TikTok now. So D23 still plays a critical role in everything. But I think they're trying to boost Destination D up to a bigger event now, because it's better for them not to have to rely every 2 years on big announcements. I think maybe Destination D next year, next November, might have bigger announcements than typical at Destination D, especially with it now being live streamed. Both presentations are live streamed. Josh D'Amaro clearly has no issue doing the live stream, kind of, going live and not having any kind of mess ups or anything like that on stage. So with him being such a slick presenter of these kind of things, Destination D obviously in 2023 will most likely be live streamed as well, in which case they can also announce something big at Destination D, which I think is when we'll get the official the fleshed out stuff for Moana's mini land in Animal Kingdom, the Pacific Isles, or whatever they want to call it. Let me just have a quick drink, guys, because like I said, talking and you need to have a bit of a drink. It'll be bigger than those rides. It'll be an e-ticket ride. That's in reference to the Avengers ride. It will be classed as an e-ticket. Now, some people say, stop using the e-ticket verbiage. E-ticket, D-ticket, C-ticket. Goes back to the ticket books of Disneyland. The reason why us in the community and some, us who talk about the attractions stuff, refer to things as e-tickets and D-tickets and C-tickets is because within Imagineering themselves, they do still use verbiage like that, just to help give a little bit of a grading system to the different types of attraction. And so, I do think Avengers, the IP itself, warrants it being an e-ticket. The ride system itself might not be the most e-ticket worthy, classification, because it is a bit like Flight of Passage. Flight of Passage is an e-ticket, but being now 5 or 6 years old, is it still classed as that? I would say the IP alone makes it an e-ticket, because in the circumstance of Avengers, that's a massive franchise, and it's done billions and billions and billions at the box office around the world. So clearly, there's an awful lot of interest for that. There's conversations within the chat here, so I'm just trying to find the questions. Very interesting. They haven't released the Fantasmic return date. Yeah. Now we know that Fantasmic is in current rehearsals right now at Walt Disney World, and that will also see the additions of Moana, Aladdin, and Frozen to Fantasmic. And it's rumoured that the Pocahontas scene has been removed in placement of the Aladdin, Moana, and Frozen segments being added. So we'll get something from that soon. I'm suspecting that the opening for Fantasmic is going to be obviously not this month. It's going to be in October. I'm suspecting, I don't think it will drag on close to Christmas, because you do it too close to the Christmas season. You've already got crowds at Walt Disney World for that. So I'm thinking either end of October, early November for Fantasmic, realistically. But you don't want to go too close to Thanksgiving week, because the park's already packed as it is. So and obviously when a show like that debuts, you want to have a week or so of having shows which aren't, it's a way to put it, it's like a soft period, like a soft test period, that kind of thing, for the shows and things like that. So that would be interesting. Even Blue Sky idea of Villains Land or part of a new park had been a rumor for years and years now. Yeah, that is very true. That whole Dark Kingdom or Villain Kingdom, or I've also called it the Dark Realm. I think that's a pretty cool name, the Dark Realm. But like a Villain's Kingdom kind of thing. That had been rumored for many years, and clearly Disney have looked over at Epic Universe doing the Universal Classic Monsters Land, and seen the interest in that and thought, maybe we should use the rest of our catalogue of characters, not just the 50% who are heroes, but the other 50% who are villains, because, there's a lot of merchandise to be sold there. People do love the Disney villains as well. People, human nature, we're complex human beings, and oftentimes the villains in these Disney animated movies and movies in general have the more interesting backstories, and they spark more interest from that. So maybe they've looked over at Universal and thought, yeah, maybe we should pull the trigger on the whole villains idea and actually do that at some point. Do you think Murphy the Dragon will be within Fantasmic 2.0? Yeah, I do think the dragon will be within the show. Let me have a look here. But they should not build a huge new theme park only based on villains. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. So there was also talk going into D23 that I agree there, Sebastian, because there was talk going into D23 that maybe they're going to announce a fifth park to compete with Epic Universe. And personally, I don't see that as making much sense, because Disney's parks, as they currently stand, they need more capacity. Animal Kingdom needs more capacity. Hollywood Studios needs more capacity. Epcot can handle a lot of capacity, but it needs a few more offerings to entice people to go to that park. And then Magic Kingdom is obviously still the number one. And so to expand Magic Kingdom makes sense, but it's the infrastructure of getting people to Magic Kingdom. Will that be able to cope with the capacity that they're going to put within that park? That's a different matter. But the fifth park idea, I don't think they need a fifth park. I think they just needed what I would have liked to see them do at D23 would have been to expand every single one of the parks in a big, expansive way. Say, we're going to add a new land to Animal Kingdom, new land to Hollywood Studios, a new land. You get a bit like an Oprah Winfrey kind of style thing. You get a new land, and you get a new land, and you get that kind of thing. And I'd liked them to do that kind of thing for Walt Disney World, but they just didn't do it. And I feel like the very end of the event, saying, hey, we've got some blue sky ideas. Maybe you like this, maybe you'll like that. It just didn't clearly connect with the audience. And what people were wanting were hard, confirmed announcements. Actual, put your flag in the ground, say this is what we're doing right now. But they didn't. And so D23 in general this year, it's the first one for 3 years since 2019. It was the first one in 3 years. And I would say it did disappoint. And that from my perspective, I've tried to cover it the best I can on DSNY Newscast, but I would like to not apologize because of the coverage was bad, but I do apologize to you for saying that there were big things planned, in the predictions video, and they didn't deliver them. So I'm almost sorry, I would say I'm sorry that I overhyped D23 this year, thinking that Disney would deliver, and they didn't. I know that's not my fault that they didn't deliver, but I still feel a sense of responsibility to all of you that the Disney Parks presentation, the predictions that I put in that video, from everything that we'd heard leading into it and everything I've heard leading into it, they under-delivered massively. And, no one's more disappointed than me. But I'm sorry for, almost overhyping it. And to be honest, I was getting a sense of, from everybody online, that a lot of people weren't interested in D23 Expo this year. And I think them doing what they did in the Disney Parks presentation, I think they've done themselves a lot of harm, to be honest. D23 Expo makes them a lot of money. And by not delivering the way they should have, they tout it as the ultimate Disney fan event, and it's the best thing ever, and it's the most, if you're a Disney fan, you've got to go there. I think now they've actually done themselves a lot of damage for 2024. And, maybe 2024, the tickets won't sell out nearly as fast. Maybe they'll have to do a special kind of package deal, but they do need to deliver in 2024. And I think by 2024, Disney will have already sensed the amount of enthusiasm and anticipation for Epic Universe and done their own guest surveys and worked out whether people are going to either add on an extra day for Epic Universe or maybe take off a day from Disney and move it over to Epic Universe. Disney will have been doing that research throughout 2023 and 2024, certainly. And by 2025, after Epic Universe has opened and they've seen their guest research either proven correct or proven wrong, it will affect what we receive in 2024 accordingly. And obviously they'll begin building in 2025 based upon that. So it'll be an interesting couple of years to watch with Disney right now. I've got, like I said, I've got quite a few really good videos lined up for the end of this year. Projects which, that we've spoken about, some that we haven't spoken about. I don't want to start mentioning them because otherwise, if I mention them right now, it gives other YouTube channels ideas for videos and stuff, and you know how it can be. So I'll keep the ideas to myself for now, but they are some good topics, and I do have some deep dives to do into these various topics. But yeah, no, we're currently at the hour mark, roughly. I just want to keep going with some of these questions here. Did you watch the new Chippendales Rescue Rangers? Yes, on Disney Plus. I did watch that, and the Andy Samberg, John Mulaney version of it, I thought it was fantastic. I thought it was genuinely funny. The cameos and the various little Easter eggs to all the different Disney, not just Disney, also some other movie references as well, were fantastic, and I really, really enjoyed it. I haven't watched it again since. I probably will go back and watch it again, but it was definitely one of those ones which I finished watching and I was like, yeah, it delivered. Pinocchio, on the other hand, I'm only made it halfway through so far. It's not the best, and I really had high hopes for Pinocchio on Disney Plus because it's Robert Zemeckis, Tom Hanks, who else is in it? Cynthia Erivo, I think that's how you pronounce her name. And you had Joseph Gordon-Levitt voicing Jiminy Cricket. You had all these different actors in that movie, and it just doesn't work, to be honest. And I was really hoping it would work really well. I've got higher hopes for Hocus Pocus 2, and I think a lot of the other stuff coming to Disney Plus in terms of Andor and The Mandalorian Season 3. And the one thing I will actually say, She-Hulk. I've really been enjoying She-Hulk. Well, I think we're on episode 5 right now, and it's been really, really good so far. It's the references, the breaking of a fourth wall, the breaking down of a fourth wall and talking to the camera, that works for the show. The CGI, if you can just, put up with it and just say, hey, the CGI is not great, but focus on the story and the dialogue, I think it's very funny. It's very cleverly written. Are there any Waltoneering episodes planned for the future? Not gonna lie, I like those. Yeah, so Digital Horizon, I don't have any planned for right now. What I'm thinking of doing with the Waltoneering series is moving it on over to Patreon and doing those on Patreon instead. Because whenever I post those Waltoneering videos to YouTube and on the main channel, people don't come to DSNY Newscast for my ideas necessarily. They hopefully I provide some insight and stuff like that. But in terms of the actual Waltoneering and armchair Imagineering ideas of the Disney parks, they don't do as well. And so I'm going to move those over to Patreon most likely and start doing those fairly soon, because those who do like them can subscribe on Patreon for a small amount per month and get a new one maybe per month instead of doing it on the main YouTube channel. And then I can keep DSNY Newscast to news, deep dive, in-depth analysis, and hopefully I'm going to do more ad-libs and live streams like this on the channel going forward. Obviously, going forward, you can't go backwards. Jack, I hope you enjoyed all the other panels over the weekend. Yeah, the other panel I actually really enjoyed was the animation panel. Getting the announcement of Disney Wish, which sounds like an interesting idea. Pixar's Elio, and which I keep thinking Elio, it's like ELO, it's like Mr. Blue Sky. And then also, what was the other one from Pixar? Elemental, and I feel like I'm blanking on one of them here. Wait, give me a second. No, that's it. Yeah, that's basically all of them there. But I do think Disney Wish is going to be a very interesting concept that comes out next November. And then Elemental and Elio. Elemental, I've got high hopes for, very high hopes for. Let me put a bit of the artwork in the live stream here. I think you got Wade there and Ember, and Inside Out 2. Obviously, Inside Out 2 is the other one. But no, this show here for this movie of Elemental, I've got high hopes for, because it's another one of those Pixar concepts. It's like Inside Out or Monsters Inc., which you would think, nah, how can they make a movie of that? But this sounds very very, very promising. The whole idea of they're in love, but obviously being fire and water, they can't touch in terms of even give each other a hug or anything like that, or have that kiss moment that most animated movies have, that Disney movies are based around. It's an interesting concept. So, it's a city built around fire. I think they've described it as a city of fire, earth, wind, and water creatures. So you got clouds that are people, and you got trees, and so it's just gonna be an interesting visual display, I think. Let me also have a look here. They should replace the Buzz Lightyear ride at Magic Kingdom with a Lightyear ride. Now, Sebastian, when Lightyear came out, it didn't do very well at the box office, and the box office often talks, and that's the reason why I was actually kind of surprised that they announced the Mary Poppins ride in 2019, because although I really enjoyed the Mary Poppins Returns movie, it didn't do very well at the box office. But clearly there was someone who was a fan of it. I think Bob Chapin might be a fan of it, and he kind of pushed it forward. But now it's been paused. I doubt it's coming back. But although, what I will say is, whenever I do mention the Mary Poppins ride, even though it has been paused, and even though we haven't had any new information on it for quite a while, no matter what, it still gets a lot of, engagement online. It's something that cuts through. It's obviously a classic Disney franchise. It's one of their first Disney franchises, live action franchises that is, that cut through, and it holds a special place in a lot of people's heart. So, that'll be interesting about that. But I don't think the Lightyear retheme to Buzz Lightyear's Astro Blasters or Space Ranger Spin, or whichever park you're in around the world, is going to happen, because it did underperform. Also, let's just face it, I think that was just, I don't know if that had much backing behind that rumour. I think it might have just been a case of somebody saying, hey, look, the Lightyear movie's coming out, and hey, look, there's a Lightyear ride. Maybe they're going to retheme it. I don't know if there was any backing behind that rumour. Realistically, Imagineering look at all different concepts. It could have just been in the stage of, if this movie does really, really well, like does $1 billion or something like Toy Story numbers, then yeah, we'll retheme it. But it could have been nothing more than that with an Imagineering. So yeah, from that perspective. Justice for Figment. Yeah, so I don't know if this is going to be an actual Figment traditional meet and greet the way that everybody thinks it's going to be. I think the reason why it's going to be late 2023 is because they need an indoor space for it. And I think it's going to either utilise Project Tiny or Project Kiwi. And it's going to be an innovative meet and greet of Figment. that we haven't seen before. So we'll see about that. Will Figment meet and greet lead to the revamp in the future? What I think that Disney are looking to do. Now, I don't know if we're going to see Journey into Imagination rethemed back to Figment and Dreamfinder. I've done a Walt Disney video on it explaining a way in which I think they could blend Inside Out and Figment and Dreamfinder together within the same ride. But maybe they see more return on doing an Inside Out ride in the Imagination Pavilion and having a Figment meet and greet to the side in the Magic Eye Theatre, and this makes way for that, basically. Gives people their Figment, dose of Figment, basically. And then they can do what they want with the Imagination Pavilion in terms of the ride. When Elemental gets released, they should probably build an attraction in World Nature in Epcot to add new rides based on those movies. They should replace the Figment ride with an Inside ride. Sebastian, actually, you know what there? If Elemental does well, I actually feel like Elemental is actually a better prospect for World Nature than Moana is. Because obviously it is, but then again, Moana's all about the living water and the water cycle and stuff like that. So maybe they could retheme it to Elemental, potentially. I don't know. But that would be an interesting thing to teach children of all ages about the elements. Obviously there's this kind of edutainment within Epcot of, if you're going to do something educational, make it entertaining as well. And I feel like with Elemental, there's the possibility that they could teach kids about the various elements, much like Living with the Land teaches children about the various biomes on Earth and things like that. So, that's an interesting concept. It was just an updates presentation. Leonardo says, I really felt the audience reactions were very disproportional to the announcements. Yeah, that could have been a kind of, I'm in here. Maybe it could have been a fact that people were sat there and they weren't looking at the clock, and they were just thinking, hey, this presentation, there might be a lot of new people there who had never been to a Disney Parks presentation, didn't understand it was only going to be a 90-minute to a 2-hour presentation, and instead was like, we're still warming up, and so there's a lot of rounds of applause for relatively small announcements, and I will say it's to Josh D'Amaro's credit that he manages to wow the crowd like that. But to be honest, it fell flat when you watch the live stream. It had so much filler in it. Announcements which you wouldn't need to have on stage. I mean, they didn't even commit to a firm opening. I mean, for Tron. I mean, spring 2023, that's a vague opening time period. They could have committed to at least a month, at the very least. But I know Disney typically commit to seasons instead of they commit to fall or spring or summer before they'll ever commit to a month. How could people cheer for the Tron opening day? Yeah, I know, Richard. Will the People Mover ever be back? And we're obviously referencing Disneyland there. There were some announcements which I thought would be easy to announce and would get big reactions and would dominate the news cycle. And one of them was going to be, if they would have announced, they could have done this. This is what I would have done. Clearly, they've got something planned for Tomorrowland, okay? What I would have done is I would have brought on the head of the Tomorrowland project on stage, and then I would have said, hey, make the announcement, we're revamping and we're bringing back the People Mover to Disneyland. Woo! Big round of applause. People would have gone nuts for that. And then I would have said, and we're going to have big plans for Tomorrowland. Maybe show a very vague piece of blue sky concept art, but if not, just say, and we're also working on the revamp plans for Tomorrowland. They didn't even need to show artwork, but they could have said we're working on them, because clearly they are. That's not committing to anything which we don't know they're already doing. We know they're working on Tomorrowland because that land is in desperate need of being worked on, and so we know they're working on it. So why not just commit to it? Why be so non-committal to these different announcements? So that would have sufficed in terms of dominating the news cycle for big news coming out of Disneyland for the D23 Expo. And then, in terms of Walt Disney World, I would have announced the Figment meet and greet coming back, but I would have said, instead of Josh D'Amaro saying, and we've got more to talk about in the future regarding the Figment meet and greet, I'd have said, and also point to the screen with Journey to Imagination behind, we're working on a revamped Journey into Imagination. We're not ready to announce the plans right now, but we're working on it. At least commit to the idea that you're working on it, because we all know they are. We all know they've got plans for Journey into Imagination. We all know they've got plans for Tomorrowland. Just commit to the plans. That's all they needed to do. They didn't need to give us a time frame for them. They didn't even need to give us blue sky concept art. They just need to commit that they're working on them, because we all know that these are the areas where they're going to be looking next. Journey to Imagination, Tomorrowland, and an Encanto attraction, and also obviously Dino Land replacement in Animal Kingdom, which they did sort of commit to. But nevertheless, they didn't do any of that. And also even talk about, I'm working on updates to Tomorrowland over in Walt Disney World, because we know they're going to do that as well with Stitch's Great Escape at some point as well. But they were just so vague and non-committal. Now, I personally suspect that part of this might have been to do with the fact that the next fiscal year is coming up, okay? And that begins, obviously, for Disney in October. And Chapek is obviously trying to look after the bottom line. And yeah, I know Chapek isn't the one who oversees the parks, and we should give blame to Josh D'Amaro for delivering, a pretty lackluster presentation. Chapek, he wasn't a great presenter, but at least he delivered the goods in terms of the presentations. But then again, D'Amaro is also not in charge of greenlighting the budgets in terms of, the overall budget. Chapek gets to have control of the purse strings over what budget gets given to Disney parks and what budget gets given to the movies and stuff like that. He has overall say of that kind of stuff. And so maybe he's saying we're not announcing anything big until we know what the US economic forecast will look like into next year. Because obviously it's been spoken about a lot in the media that there's recession looming and stuff like that. And at least around the world there's been talk about that, and China's heading into what looks like a really bad situation economically, and the ripple effects that's going to have around the world. And then obviously there's been massive inflation and hyperinflation and cost of living crisis and all this other stuff that plays into it. And so from that perspective, maybe they're holding back on announcing big stuff because of that. And that's the reason why Josh kind of announced the blue sky stuff. But that blue sky stuff wouldn't have been announced without Chapek's approval. Chapek would have approved that presentation. So with him approving that presentation, I can guarantee you that they're working on something for the Magic Kingdom. And I can guarantee you they're working on something for Animal Kingdom. They're definitely looking at these two locations as the next locations to build something in. I know a lot of people like to say, it'll never happen. Yeah, the expansions will never happen. Dino Land's thing will never happen, and neither will Beyond Frontierland. Nothing will ever happen. Clearly, they're working on it because they've done all the infrastructure stuff in Magic Kingdom. They've got the land cleared in Animal Kingdom. They're going to do it. It's just foolish to say they're not going to do it. But will they deliver what they've shown us in the concept art? Who knows? But there will be something new added to Magic Kingdom and Animal Kingdom within the next 5 years, or be under construction. Other comments. You have some great blue sky ideas, Jack. Oh, thank you for that. Okay, Ben Jr. noted. The black box ride concept also went away. We never got any further updates on what was supposed to be a new amazing ride that could be quickly rethemed to a different IP. So yeah, that was never officially announced by Disney. That was only something that was rumored heavily by insiders. When we say black box, we mean like an interchangeable attraction that's heavily media based. So therefore, they can via projections and stuff like that change up the interior of it for a year for a different IP. So whatever. So right now, they could have done it to Encanto or something like that. That's a topic which is an interesting one to talk about. and the way that Disney could do it, and why it hasn't come to fruition yet. But yeah, that's an interesting topic in itself. I wonder if they funneled more capital from the parks into Disney Plus, especially since the pandemic. No, I don't think they have. I know that's a popular thing for a lot of people to say, the parks are the big money makers, and they're putting all the money from the parks into Disney Plus. If you just look at the financials, that's not the way it's working. You look at the financial spreadsheets, the actual quarterly earnings. The parks, that revenue isn't being funneled into Disney Plus. Disney made a big commitment of how much money they were putting into Disney Plus back in 2020 and in 2019, and they're keeping to those commitments. And that's not the parks money that's being funneled. It's not like they have a good year at the parks and they're gonna produce more shows on Disney Plus. That's not the way it works. They're trying to compete with Netflix and HBO Max and Peacock over on NBC and Universal and Paramount Plus. They're competing in a very hyper-competitive space. And they made these commitments to the spending for these shows a while ago. This isn't like... they made the spending commitments to Disney Plus back when a lot of the parks were shut. So they are obviously putting more money into Disney Plus, but I don't think it's because they're like, let's bleed the Disney parks of all the money they've got and put it into Disney Plus. It doesn't work that way. That linear kind of progression of the money coming from the Disney parks into Disney Plus. But I do think that they do see an area where they need to invest right now to stay competitive is Disney Plus. And the problem is that is an investment strategy which is never ending. The streaming market it's like you're running a race and you've been jogging up until now, with traditional DVDs and movie theater releases and TV production. And now Netflix came sprinting along the side of Disney. And then Disney were like, we better start sprinting as well. And once the two of them are sprinting, where are you going to go from there? You have to keep it up. You have to keep going. And I think that's kind of a dilemma Disney's in right now. It's almost an unwinnable situation. I don't envy them, but they've decided to go down that route with Disney Plus. Disney parks in general, you build something in a Disney park and it continues to return time after time, years in the future. But when it comes to Universal, they're nipping at Disney's heels with Universal and Epic Universe. Even me, I'm interested in Universal. I've been going to Universal for over a year now, on a regular basis, and I love Halloween Horror Nights and stuff like that. So, there's market share there, and I think that Disney's game plan of thinking, Universal are going to open up a new park, Epic Universe, that will a rising tide lifts all ships idea. I don't know if that's going to play out the exact way that Disney think it's going to play out. I suspect that Disney may find out the unfortunate truth that people are going to take a park day off Disney and give it to Universal, at least for 2025 and 2026. That vacation season, that vacation period when Epic Universe has just opened and people haven't experienced that brand new park. Are they likely to take a day off away from Universal? Maybe they want to do 2 days at Epic Universe. It's a brand new park, and maybe they're going to take 1 day away from Disney that they would usually go to Disney for. CliffX, looking forward to watching your Enchantment and Harmonious videos once they're gone. Yeah, no, CliffX, you do a fantastic job with the... I've seen your videos as well for the nighttime entertainment. You do a great job of recording these things. Usually they're 4K, multi-angle, things like that, brilliantly edited together. They're very good. I highly recommend watching those. I also think the Diz do a great job of recording the nighttime entertainment one. Super Nintendo World. We've got a reference there. The future is not written yet. Ben is saying that. Yeah, the future is not written yet. And I'm not saying that Disney is definitely going to lose market share to Universal. It's going to be very interesting to watch this play out over the next couple of years. Someone bring us up. What's up with the treehouse at Disneyland? So it's been nowhere did Disney firmly say it was going to be themed to Encanto. It has gone down for refurbishment, a very lengthy refurbishment. The OC Register, the Orange County Register, did an article and they said, they've spoken to Disneyland, and Disneyland say, something new and exciting is coming to this space. From there, OC Register decided to then run with the idea that it's Encanto. Logically, it could be Encanto and themed to Antonio's treehouse, that kind of thing, as a reference there. But, nowhere was it confirmed it's going to definitely be Encanto. The money being on Encanto, yeah, it seems likely, but it wasn't confirmed to be so. Jace Deal as well. Hi there, Jace. Yeah, you also do great work as well. Jace actually, it's a plug for Jace. He's just done an interview with Brett, who is the voice of Brett Iwan, the voice of Mickey Mouse. And he's done a great interview with him in Disneyland. I don't know how he managed to snag that interview. That's a great interview. And he and Brett actually explained his whole story of how he became the voice of Mickey Mouse. Back in, I think it was 2009 or 2010, he was called in and he was basically made the, not Sorcerer's Apprentice, but the Apprentice. And he became the voice of Mickey Mouse, the permanent new voice of Mickey Mouse. And now he's got that job until he can't do it anymore. Brett has. So, very interesting interview. I'd highly recommend going and checking that out. Type in something along the lines of how I became the voice of Mickey Mouse or something like that into YouTube. It should pop up. Or just type in Jace's name there into YouTube and you'll find it as well. Okay, Jay says, what do you think Disney reworked? Why do you think Disney reworked the new Avengers Ride? Do you think it has the same budget as the original? These streams are always awesome. Thank you, Jace. So I think that they for the reason which I've stated earlier, the reason why I think they've reworked the original ride into this new more media-heavy screen-based ride that's going to be more of a Quinjet flying in front of a screen kind of idea in a traditional formation, a bit like the Peter Pan ride that's going to be going over to Tokyo. The reason why they've reworked it is because, from what I've heard, the ride system was having issues, basically. So when they were in the research and development of the innovative new ride system, they couldn't get it working the way that they wanted it to. Then, obviously, well, it wasn't like they weren't being able to get it working, but it wasn't. The project wasn't flowing along the way they wanted it to, and they were going to have to spend a little bit more time troubleshooting it, basically. And then the pandemic came along in March 2020, and they decided, boom, we're going to pause all projects, and that got paused along with everything else. And then it's sat on the shelf until now, and now it's been, refunded. And they've decided to move with a different ride system when it's been refunded. That will make it so therefore they can open it sooner in 2025, or keep to its original time frame of 2025, considering it has been paused for a year and a half, 2 years since it was opened, since it was announced. Sorry. So 2025 looks likely maybe 2026. It'll be roughly around the time of, they'll try and sync it up with the Avengers saga and stuff like that. So it could be end of 2025, 2026. Could be November 2025-ish or into early 2026. But, and then, do I think it has the same budget as the original? I think it probably doesn't have the exact same budget, but it's got a sizable budget to it. It's not going to be, a small ride by any means. It's going to be a solid thrill ride, and it will be probably one of the more sought after rides at Disneyland Resort for quite some time, just based on the IP alone. And hopefully it should help balance out Disneyland Resort with Rise of Resistance and the Avengers Ride, because that's the one thing that's really missing from Avengers Campus. You got Mission Breakout, you got Web Slingers, but it needs one more ride, I feel like, just to round out the land. Are the barges leaving as well? Well, Matthew, I just did a video. Sorry about that. I just did a video, and they should be going away as well. From what I understand, they shouldn't be sticking around for too much longer. It will be like spring of next year they'll start being removed. I don't know exactly when they'll start being removed, but it'll be after the 50th anniversary wraps up, obviously, on March 31st. But yeah, the barges will not be sticking around for long. Now, in terms of a new show, they may have barges within the new show, but they won't be, I don't think they'll be the size or the same barges, but they'll be able to be brought out around 6 p.m. at night and then taken back, much like the Reflections of Earth globe used to, from that perspective, because they don't want it sitting there. It's a maintenance nightmare. It just sat there on the lagoon all day. CliffX says, did we talk about the quick death of Harmonious yet? No, well, we touched on it very briefly. I never enjoyed Harmonious. I feel like there were 2 segments in Harmonious that really worked well, and that's the Coco segment and the Princess and the Frog segment. Oh, and the very intro segment, the one that we all saw in the Epcot Experience Center, the blending of Hercules and Go the Distance and How Far I'll Go from Moana. That blending, that was fantastic. But it was such an odd show. Let's be honest, it's such a weird show. You sat there, well, you're not sat there, you stood there, and the fireworks are great, but like, number one, the viewing angles, like, you don't have a great viewing angle. If it's a windy night, you don't get the mist projection quite right in the central ring of the lagoon. And then just the music choices and the IP, like, okay, to represent the United Kingdom, this is my own problem with Harmonious. To represent the United Kingdom, they chose Brave. Okay? Now, I don't have an issue with Brave. I don't have an issue with Scotland being the representation. What I do have an issue with is that Brave got the representation within Happily Ever After. And Brave came out in 2012. Or everything else that was kind of featured within Harmonious was more relevant and more recent, and yet they didn't pick the most obvious one, which is Mary Poppins or Mary Poppins Returns. Instead you have these kind of Windows Media Player visualizer screensavers on the barges, and they just, they have some red hair flying around, like that's meant to represent Merida, is it? Great. You didn't even come up with some sort of Celtic graphic. It's just this kind of like this, at one point it's just this wavy, curly red hair. And it's just like, what is that? Seriously. But you could have had Mary Poppins and you could have had dancing penguins. You could have had can you imagine that segment from Mary Poppins, or A Cover Is Not the Book, or something like that? Any one of those would have worked, or Nowhere to Go But Up. With kites and balloons and stuff, all sorts of things could have worked for Harmonious, and they didn't. I don't get it. I don't get where Disney are coming from with this. But then also the rest of the segments, Mulan, bit of a weird one in terms of the vibe of it. Is everything else is very kind of upbeat, and then Mulan segment comes on. I always thought it was Black Widow because it's kind of red and black, and it's kind of like this it's kind of military kind of sound to it, and it just doesn't fit with the rest of the show. And then you've got the Saludos Amigos and Coco segments, fantastic. I love the blending of those two. That's a real party. And then you've got Princess and the Frog, and that's another, that New Orleans vibe, and that works as well. But Jungle Book, I love the Jungle Book. It's easily one of my favourite animated movies, 1967 version. But yet, you've got I Want to Be Like You, and it doesn't have that same sort of vibe or rhythm that it usually has. It's slower, and it doesn't sound like the Louis Prima version of it. And, and you just have some like paper monkeys kind of like dancing. It's a very odd show, Harmonious. And from what I understood, the original concept of it was going to be like a compass, okay? And the compass would move round, and the central ring would be like a compass, and as we move round the compass, we visit different worlds and with different countries around the world. And they didn't even use that in the narration. The one show that probably needed the narration was Harmonious, and yet it didn't have narration. And yet Enchantment probably didn't need the narration, and yet that did get a narrator. So it's just all very mixed up altogether, the whole nighttime shows for the 50th. Okay, I'm pretty sure that we've covered an awful lot here tonight now. We're at the hour and a half mark. I want to go have something to eat. I haven't eaten anything tonight for dinner, so I want to have something to eat. I really enjoy the chat. I love having these chats, but overall, hopefully next time around for D23 Expo, they deliver the goods, basically. We'll see what they deliver for Destination D. I've got plenty lined up for the rest of the year in terms of good topics of videos. I will not disappoint, unlike D23 did. I will deliver the goods in terms of interesting news and interesting insights. So you can rest assured with that, DSNY Newscast will be back with a lot of info and interesting insights for you all to enjoy. So make sure you subscribe for all of that. I just want to say a quick thank you to the sponsor of D23 week coverage, and that's Tops. Disney Collect by Tops. I've used the app. It's really fun to actually use if you're into card trading and stuff like that. It's got this kind of animations and stuff like that. I'm not a big card trader, but even I was sucked into it and found myself, oh, that's an interesting card. Maybe I'll try and trade to get that card in my collection. So maybe give it a look. The links down below in the description box. And with everything else being said, I'll be back with more live streams in the future, and hopefully you've enjoyed all the D23 Expo coverage. Like this video, subscribe down below, and with all of that being said, I've been Jack. You've been you, and I'll see you real soon.